Come diceva un titolo del meeting di alcuni anni.
As a title of the meeting some years ago said, freedom is the most precious gift given to man. And of this gift, religious freedom is the most sacred and impressive determination. The heart of every culture, as John Paul II stated at the United Nations in 1995, is made up of its approach to the greatest of the mysteries, the mystery of God. Therefore, our respect for other people's culture is rooted in our respect for the attempt of every community to give an answer to the problem of human life. Over the years, here at the meeting, we've always wanted to investigate and have an in-depth knowledge of every culture and the heart of man. And we followed in our activity the testimony of the master and friend of the meeting, namely the Cardinal Jean-Louis Tourin. Hence the title of this meeting. There are two co-essential aspects of religious freedom. The freedom to profess one's own faith in private and in public, in a community and personally, and to have no interferences when it comes to one's own choices of life, even if one chooses to abandon faith or not to have any faith. The second aspect is the freedom to be able to take part in the public life, to favor everybody's good. Faiths must be able to express their own contribution to the common good and to the common house and to the order of the world. So freedom of and freedom for, these two aspects are the basis of the Universal Declaration of the Rights of Man, but of which in 2018 we celebrated the 70th anniversary. The contemporary conscience came to this awareness after a very long pathway, tormented at times, and it will never go back. Those who want to think about religious freedom can only start from this point onwards. The principle, however, is not enough to get rid of discriminations, violence, and hatred. In some situations, it is the very theoretical principle which is denied. In other situations, in other contexts, the human action is denied. The cultural and social initiatives are denied, and they need to come from this right. In both cases, there are many killers of religious freedom of and for. But those who really love mankind always strive and struggle to cherish this kind of treasure. And we will have testimonies of this, and we're going to have 3 speakers, and I would like to thank them all for accepting our invitation. I would like to welcome, and I would like you to welcome Professor Nazir Ayyad, the Secretary General of the Al-Azhar Research Academy. And I will explain further what this academy is about. Then Jàn Figèl, who for the first time is here with us at the meeting. He's a special envoy of the European Union for religious freedom. And His Excellency Ivan Jurkovič, the permanent observer of the Holy See at the international organisms of Geneva. I will now leave the floor to Professor Ayyad. He's going to talk in Arabic, and we're going to listen to the Italian translation in oversound for the audience. In October, we've had a visit at the Cairo, and we met the great Imam of the Al-Azhar. As many of you know, Al-Azhar is the most important and authoritative cultural and religious reality of the Sunnite world, and it has a great influence on that part of the Muslim world. And in the dialogue that we had with Al-Tayyab, the great Imam, there was an immediate mutual recognition. And the Imam was impressed by our talking about the meeting and talking about our own reality. And over the last few months, he wanted to know more about the meeting, about his history and its editions. And he wanted to be represented here personally by Professor Ayyad, who is one of the most important figures in the very complex and very big system of the Al-Azhar. I will now invite Professor to have the floor. You can sit as you like or go to the podium. And as I said, we're going to listen to the translation into Italian.
الحمد لله رب العالمين وأصلي وأسلم على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين سيدنا محمد اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك عليه أيها المنصة الكريمة الحفل الكريم أحييكم بتحية الإسلام.
I would like to greet you with Assalamu alaikum. Be peace be with you, and I ask God to give his blessing to you all. And I hope that this meeting is a way to unite us. At the beginning, I would like to give you the greetings by Ahmad al-Tayyib, the Imam of Al-Azhar. And I would like to thank him for his efforts. I would like to thank the Rimini meeting for enabling the peaceful coexistence in all of its meanings. And we must be all aware of the fact that the intention of the Rimini meeting is always very noble, and its purpose is very high, very noble, because a meeting deals with various topics, and the first one is the affirmation and statement when it comes to freedom of belief, and then the confirmation of the possibility for an interreligious dialogue. I had prepared a speech to deliver today, but this morning and during my walk through the halls of the meeting, I visited two exhibitions. The first exhibition was the exhibition which describes the history of the meeting between Saint Francis and the Al-Kamil Sultan. And during that meeting, I can see a set of evidence, and I can find a confirmation of the possibility to find a space for dialogue among people belonging to different religious beliefs, going beyond all the differences when it comes to nationality, gender, or race. So the story I've listened while I was visiting this exhibition talked about a positive relation between St. Francis and the Sultan. And it was possible thanks to the authentic interpretation of religious concept. And because the Sultan enabled St. Francis to talk freely about his religion, and he was so impressed that he decided to allow St. Francis to remain in Egypt and to convey the Christian message. And this testifies to the possibility of attaining a peaceful life, a peaceful coexistence between different religions. Then the second exhibition I visited this morning was the exhibition of the International Organization for Rescue and Development. This organization belongs to the World Muslim League, and it can realize the concept of meeting between people of different religions. And the title, Compassion Unifies Us, the title of this exhibition is the very expression of this concept. As God said, I created you from a male and a female, and we made you a peoples because you need to coexist and you need to know each other. This is one of the verses of the Quran. And Muhammad also said that God helps his servants when his servants have their brothers and sisters. So we should not attack religious freedom. We should never attack the right to diversity and the right to diversity of religion. All the great religions state the need to cherish this right to the freedom of belief. And Islam itself also confirms this concept. And it sets several rules which protect this freedom. They protect freedom from attacks and from the enemies. Islam looks at freedom of belief as one of the features of mankind, a fundamental feature of mankind. If we attack religious freedom, we attack the entire humanity and mankind. Man cannot be forced to one faith, to one belief. Man is free to choose his or her own religious belief. Man cannot be forced. So we see that Islam and the heavenly religions have amongst their moral basis the concept of human dignity and therefore the concept of religious freedom, because man is the best of the creatures created by God, and hence man has the right to choose what he likes. And in the end, God will decide for man what was right and what was wrong. At the beginning, this concept of religious freedom was applied authentically in entire mankind, beyond the fact of belonging to Islam or not. At the beginning, Islam has always accepted, since the beginning, Islam has always tolerated all the other religions. And it has always been a religion which accepts all the other religions, even the Jewish religion. When it comes to the right to freedom, the right to freedom in Islam is a divine judgment. It is a divine judgment which must never lead to conflicts because it is protected by the Islamic Sharia. We've created nations as a single nation, and they should never be in conflict one with the other. This is what Islam says. We must defend justice. We must defend the justice of having equality between all men beyond the differences of languages, religion, beliefs, and we must always be far away from any extremist idea. In the Quran, there's one verse which confirms that it is necessary to act with all men with a sense of justice. Because justice means obeying God. Acting with justice means obeying the divine precepts. Therefore, we all agree on the fact that man is free, and man is free to choose his religion. We confirm that this concept has been interpreted in different ways in the various historical periods. However, it's been one of the most important dialogues that have occurred in mankind, the brotherhood between different believers, and the wonderful dialogue between the Sultan and Saint Francis. When we study the history of mankind, we can find other examples of historic personalities who try to implement this dialogue between the religions, such as the dialogue between the Prophet Muhammad in Medina with some Christians, and the way Muhammad allowed them to stay there in his mosque, and he also enabled them to pray in his own mosque. And Khalid ibn al-Walid, too, with the people of Nihara, well, he said that he would protect them, and he would protect their possessions, their property, and their houses. And he enabled them. He enabled this group of Christians to ring the bells for the Sunday services, and they were enabled to use the crosses and to keep the crosses and to show the crosses freely. So there are several examples of very important meanings when it comes to coexistence. And there are two important personalities who taught us to look at the world and who published the Human Brotherhood document. It is a very important document which confirms the freedom of faith. It's a document that was the result of a series of meetings between two important personalities, the Imam of Al-Azhar and His Holiness Pope Francis, to confirm the culture of dialogue and to give an opportunity to freedom of belief and to confirm the possibility for a peaceful coexistence between all men. This document contains many articles. The first one talks about the importance of teaching passion, the values of mutual knowledge, and the acceptance of diversities when it comes to religious beliefs and human diversities. The second article confirms the right of every man to choose his religious beliefs and to express it. It confirms the importance of linguistic and religious diversity, ethnical diversity. The third article talks about the importance of promoting peace and accepting the others so that they can cooperate together to fight against conflicts and to solve many social, cultural, political problems. And the fourth article states that the dialogue between believers is a great space to implement common social and human values, values which are common to all great religions. And we can use these values to promote the highest moral examples, protect the places of worship, such as mosques, churches. This is a duty of all religions, and it confirms the importance of interreligious and dialogue and freedom. The document also confirms that the concept of citizenship is based on equal rights. All people must be treated with justice. The document also talks about the relationship between the West and the East, a very strong relation. And these are two complementary elements which cannot exist, the one without the other. The document also confirms the importance of the Western society in the Eastern world and the importance of the Eastern society in the Western world to fight against the spiritual and thought regression. One of the concepts we can observe in this document is the importance that it had in consolidating the importance of interreligious dialogue. I am honored to be here today at this meeting, and I hope that this is the result of a dialogue among people of different cultures and different religions, as our Brotherhood document states. And it also invites us to correct some concepts, such as the concept of minority. The concept of minority includes isolation, religious isolation. Therefore, it includes the seeds of distance from society in general. And we should also fight against sectarianism, racism, and hatred by stating the importance of the dialogue and by promoting the possible contribution of dialogue. As the Holy Quran states, come together, we have an equal religious dialogue. The importance of this document to promote passion between all peoples, because the heavenly religions reject hatred, they reject violence. As God said in the Holy Quran, we've created you from a man and a woman, and we've made you peoples to know each other. The most noble amongst you is the one who obeys most God. And Prophet Muhammad, we have a saying by Prophet Muhammad talking about a young Jewish servant who, when he fell ill, the Prophet personally went and visited him. And the way he treated, the noble way in which he treated this person, this young boy, led his family to encourage him to obey the Prophet. And this confirms the possibility of interacting peacefully between people belonging to different religions. And there's a saying by the Prophet which reads, it is right to eat the food of a person of another religion, and it is right to give food to people of other religions. So this is another confirmation of the importance of the equality between religions. And the document of human brotherhood tried to reduce conflicts between the brothers who were created to bring life to the earth and not conflicts. The document also talks about the importance of eradicating extremism as a way for peaceful coexistence. So listening to the others is fundamental to lead a dignified life, which is a right of every person on the earth. Man has features pushing him to look for a dignified life. And above all, the first of the rights of man is the right to choose the belief. And it is important to confirm that man is free in his belief. I would like to thank the organizers for their efforts, and I would like to thank the meeting for inviting me, for having me here. And I would like to thank this important and great conference. I would like to thank the meeting for confirming the concept of brotherhood between all men, especially in a period such as this one, in which we are witnessing harsh wars, harsh struggles, which have gone far beyond whatever the logic may have imagined. I would like to thank you very much.
Penso che certamente l'auspicio di una continuazione di questo dialogo, di questo rapporto tra il meeting e il centro dell'Al-Azhar è certamente.
I really hope that this hope expressed as the continuation of these relations continues. Now I would like to leave the floor to Jàn Figèl. Like I said before, I think this is the third time that he's with us at the Rimini meeting. So, as we all know, he is a protagonist of the political and cultural life of Europe for some years. Since 2016, he's a special envoy of the European Commission for the promotion of religious freedom outside the European Union. In other words, he travels all over, he establishes restlessly important relations, and this has been going on for years, and this in all areas in which this topic is particularly important and hot, so to say. So he's been traveling to Iraq, to Syria, to Central Africa, Northern Africa, to Asia, Far East Asia, and Middle East. These are his main priorities. So he's going to talk about his experience and his vision. Thank you once again very much for being with us.
Buonasera a tutti voi.
So good afternoon, and thank you, Roberto.
Thank you very much. Now all roads lead to Rimini, and I'm glad to be back again with you. 40 years of Rimini meetings means a sign of maturity. And maturity should mean fruits, delivery. I wish that this meeting will deliver what is so needed in this country of Italy, Bel Paese, but also in Europa Nostra, in our Europe, and in the world of 21st century. More sense of justice, responsible freedom, and respect to human dignity of all. On one side, religion is with the humankind from the beginning of history. It builds relations, religare. Faith serves to inspire, to strengthen spiritual life, to guide human person. On the other side, the religion was frequently abused by quest for power, for supremacy, to subdue the others. We have seen repetitive waves of persecution and mass atrocities. The last time in New Zealand or Sri Lanka. 84% of the global population declares religious affiliation. So religion is not a minor issue. It's a major issue. Those who do not understand religion, and especially abuse of religion, cannot understand what is going on in the world of today. And if we don't understand, how can we help? So it's important to understand religion, religious identity, but also religious responsibility. Freedom of religion is important because actually it's freedom of thought, freedom of conscience, freedom to believe or not to believe. And from this point of view, it's the reflection of human dignity, dignity of person. If this freedom is not respected, then freedom of opinion, freedom of assembly, freedom of associations are not respected as well. So religious freedom is a litmus test of all human rights. It's crucially important. It's not more than the others, but it's very central, crucial. And the situation in the world is very negative from this point of view, because 79% of the world population, according to Pew Research Center in Washington, lives in countries with high or very high level of restrictions to freedom. High or very high restrictions. And secondly, the tendency is negative. The level is stepping up, growing. Level of intolerance, discrimination, persecution, or even genocide. I'm here. I was nominated in 2016 because there was a genocide in the Middle East, in Iraq and Syria, committed by ISIS. So genocides in our years, in our time. And the international community promised repeatedly, never again genocides. And reality is again and again and again. So we fail to respect our own international commitments, and people suffer. So what I would say from the description of the situation, we need not only environmental climate change, but also religious freedom climate change. It means to stop negative tendencies and to revert it for more human, for more peaceful century. So shortly, I'm here as first ever European Union Special Envoy for freedom of religion or belief outside of the Union. Of course, nemo dat quod non habet. We cannot give what we don't have. Therefore, it's important that we respect, protect, promote religious freedom in Europe and also care about outside. Since 3 years, I visited not only many countries, but dealt with many concrete issues and problems in different territories. Several countries established similar positions. For example, Denmark, Germany, United Kingdom, Hungary, Lithuania. From September 1st, in 2 weeks, Netherlands will have special ambassador for religious freedom. And that's very important tendency. So we need to coordinate, cooperate, and work for the sake of those who are persecuted today in the world. Because as I said, situation is really worrying. And not only for Christians or Muslims, but for many religious or ethnic minorities, for believers or non-believers. I can tell you that atheists, humanists, non-believers are also increasingly under pressure. 21 countries in the world punish conversion by capital punishment. 13 countries have capital punishment for atheism, and more than 70 countries have blasphemy laws. The topic of this panel is religions and polis. What is the picture in the world today? According to drafted UN overview, 42% of states in the world can be labeled with some simplicity as religious. They prefer one or more religions or denominations. 5% of the world countries can be labeled as anti-religious. And 53% of the world countries, states, are labeled as secular states. I can tell you that the most worrying situations, the highest number of incidents against religious minorities or persons, believers, non-believers, for their conviction, are in so-called religious states, and of course anti-religious. So, secular state based on equal citizenship is a blessing for plurality, for freedom. Fair secular state opens the space for all, for diversity, for plurality. False secular state, so-called secular state, close the space for freedom, for religious plurality, and replace this freedom by secularism as ideology. And that's very detrimental. That's totalitarian. So what we really need is fair, open pluralism and civil states based on equal citizenship for all, for majority and minorities. It's very plausible, commendable, that in some countries they stop now to use the term minority. For example, in Egypt, they speak about communities, because majority-minority relationship is more quantitative, while speaking about communities means to see picture as a mosaic for all, with small and big parts, but one mosaic. I was very happy in Iraq when I spoke to Grand Ayatollahs from Shia community in Najaf, but also to Chaldean Patriarch Louis Raphael Sacco, as they use the same language for future of Iraq as a civil state, not religious, based on equal citizenship for all. And when religious leaders use this language and promote this conviction, I think it may happen. It may come after conflict, not only in Iraq, but in other countries as well. I don't want to speak much, but what is the most important in all reflection of rights-based approach or human rights in general is human dignity. We heard about it from Professor Ayyad. Human dignity is a foundational principle for all human rights. We have rights because we have dignity. But dignity is never based only on rights. It is invitation for duties as well. We can enjoy many rights, all rights, if we accept several duties. Actually, two. One duty is towards the other. Eins zu ein ander. Responsibility towards my brother, my sister, my neighbor. It's quoted in the Universal Declaration as human brotherhood. Duty to behave in the spirit of brotherhood. This is not religious talk. This is international law. And the second duty is at the end of this Universal Declaration with many rights. The second duty is towards the community which we live in. It's family, it's polis, it's nation. We all have duty towards community. The problem of today's world, or even crisis in towards today's world, is caused by lack of maturity or lost balance, by quest for freedom without responsibility, rights without duties. In order to overcome crisis, we need to rebalance the situation. It's possible, it's also very important. And here I want to say that if we share that human dignity belongs to everyone, we should also do our best, our utmost for human dignity of everyone and everywhere. Way out of each crisis, as I say, is a balance, new balance. It's a combination of common sense and living conscience. And therefore, when I meet religious leaders, I always speak about religious freedom, but also religious responsibility, religious social responsibility. Without this contribution, we will not meet Sustainable Development Goals 2030 of the United Nations. Without this contribution, we will not find reconciliation and renewal in many territories or regions in the world. Therefore, we welcome commitments, declarations, and real steps towards human brotherhood, shared responsibility, shared hospitality. These are not empty notions. These are very important contributions to more humane 21st century. And I am sure that this is the best contribution, of course, also of Rimini meetings. I wish this dialogue, these days here, would mark mature Rimini meetings of friendship among nations. Thank you all. Grazie molti.
Thank you very much, Jàn Figèl. You really gave us a sense of, so to say, drama. I mean, you mentioned figure. You gave us figures and the numbers you gave us were really impressive. And you also provided us with an interpretation key, so to say, to continue addressing this topic. And you also gave us some positive news. I mean, you talked about the European awareness, which is kind of growing. So at least once in a while, we can say good things about Europe. And now I would like to leave the floor to Mr. Jurkovič. He is a diplomat of the Pope. He was apostolic nuncio in several countries, including Russia. Since 2016, he's based in Geneva, and he's there as the head of the mission of the Holy See at international institutions. In Geneva, there's tens and tens, dozens and dozens of international organizations. Geneva is one of the most important cities of worldwide dialogue. And there's something, if I dare say, which is inhuman of the work that the Apostolic Nuncio does, because of the fact that you are dealing with a very large number of topics, sometimes very diverse one from the other. I mean, you range from intellectual property to human rights to disarmament or economic development, migrations. I mean, lots of topics are dealt with, and this is basically dealt with by a very small number of people who, however, express all the passion and the intention of the Catholic Church to make the world a more friendly place, a more peaceful place. So having said this, I would like to invite you, Your Excellencies, to take the floor. Thank you once again for being here. Thank you very much for these kind words. I really hope that these words are true, and we will continue doing our best for them to be true. The visibility and influence, be they positive and negative, of religion are constantly growing, have constantly grown over the last few years. Religious leaders have played a fundamental role in national and international life. Some of them have provided essential services in the poor areas of the world. Suffices to think about the Nobel Prize winner Mother Teresa from Calcutta, or the religious communities of brothers and missionary sisters of the charities founded by them, which testify to the value of human dignity in the slums, and the most degraded slums in the world. Others have influenced social, economic, and political developments which are more far-reaching. An example of this is, for example, Pope John Paul II, who, during the peaceful revolution of 1989 in Eastern Europe, gave a decisive contribution to the fall of the Berlin Wall. Others, again, animated the international debate and kind of imposed a public role of religion in society, and in doing so, they inspired several forms of religious identity, which in some cases sometimes led to new tensions. Another example is Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who actually promoted the examples of peace, freedom, reconciliation, and justice, and in doing so provided a significant contribution in the fall of the apartheid regime in South Africa. Some anonymous religious personalities are not less effective. Suffices to think about the role of the religious personnel who works for the promotion of education or health all over the world, or the many volunteers who are inspired by religious faith and who are committed in the fight against poverty and the promotion of human rights. The Catholic thought on religious freedom, as you know, has evolved over time, and it has progressively become increasingly clear. Its formulation, its most significant formulation, was reached in the Dignitatis Humanae Council, where the Council basically looked for the human dignity and recognized that its content and its value have become evident. So this right, according to the Council, provides citizens with the guarantee to immunity from any coercion, from any force that comes from individuals or social groups or public officers in exercising their duties. This right is recognized as intrinsic to the person who acts following his or her initiative and under his or her responsibility. In other words, in a free way, freely, in the human intimacy, where the deepest and most delicate issues of the soul are raised, lived, and solved. The very same fact that freedom of religion was recognized as a civil right in almost all constitutions of modern states, and that it was proclaimed as a fundamental right of the person in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, or in the European Convention for the Safeguard of Human Rights and the Fundamental Liberties, or in the Charter for the Organization of the African Unity. This can be explained only if we admit that this freedom is deeply rooted in some fundamental prerequisites of the human heart. So the task of the state is to provide its own citizens the tools that make it possible for them to exercise this right and carry out their religious duties. In other words, religious freedom is a fundamental right. It is a natural right of any person. For its nature, the person actually refers to the others, tends to create communities. So living and professing in community is not only a prerequisite of religion, but it is also a right of the person who continues from a right that stems from the same root. So Dignitatis Humanis says that the right to human dignity is the duty of any religious community, and it also specifies the areas in which religious communities have the right to act freely. The first area is provided that the rights, needs of public order are observed, religious communities have the right to claim for freedom so that they can live based on their own norms. Second, religious communities also have the right not to be limited by legal or administrative measures coming from the government in the selection, in the training, in the appointment, and in the transfer of their own ministers, in the communication with religious authorities and communities abroad, in the building of religious buildings, or in the purchasing and in the use of adequate assets. Third area, religious communities also have the right not to be limited in the teaching of their own faith, orally or in writing. And then fourth, religious freedom also foresees that religious communities should not be limited in actually tangibly showing what the added value of their faith is when it comes to the organization of society or the inspiration of the entire human community. That they can gather freely, that they can establish educational, cultural, and social organization following their own religious conviction. In today's world, where religion has found its own religion, the message that the diplomacy of the Holy See promotes internationally is the universal message that has evolved on the occasion of the Council, and that is based on the dignity of any person. So the UN affirms and promotes the same right to religious freedom, but it does not enter so much into the substantial debate on the motivations and the arguments which are at the basis of this right. One might wonder how human rights protect the right to religious freedom, if there are restrictions that can be imposed of this right, and to what extent, given this right, we can justify the restrictions of other rights, like the right to the freedom of expression, or of assembly, or of association.
The multilateral diplomacy has worked on the topic of religious freedom, especially after the end of the Second World War. The concept of dignity of each person has become even more and more clearly recognized. The problem of freedom of conscience, religion, expression has taken on a greater importance, even though a formal conviction on this topic has not found a sufficient support. However, several binding provisions have been included in the various treaties to guarantee the freedom of each person to live his or her most profound convictions. First is the right to religious freedom is recognized in Article 18 of the Declaration of Human Rights. Every individual has a right, is entitled to have freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. And it includes the liberty, the freedom to change religion or faith. And a freedom, personally, in public and private, in community with the others, one's own religion or belief in the teaching and observance of the rights. In this sense, other documents, international documents, also state the same things. The concept of discrimination based on religion is also indicated in the Declaration of the UN on the elimination of any form of intolerance and discrimination based on religion and belief, adopted in 1981. Unlike other similar documents, this declaration was not followed by the adoption of a treaty, but it had a great influence on other tools, other instruments, including the Convention on the Right of Childhood of 1987, and the UN Commission for Human Rights assigned the task to a special observer to focus on the rights of belief. And in this case as well, the declaration was a legal basis for promoting freedom. The methods for limiting the freedom are explicitly stated. Such right, indeed, must be fully respected at every moment, at any given moment. In addition, examining the restrictions that can be imposed on religious freedom, it is possible to see that the treaties envisage that such limitations can occur only when manifesting religion. The right to have and adopt a religion of one's own choice cannot be limited. Even when it comes to the manifestation of religion, some of the motivations for restrictions which usually are applied to other human rights cannot be applied in this case. For instance, restrictions cannot be justified only by resorting to national security. Having said that, there may be, by law, a restriction of the right to manifest one's own religion when this is justified in the light of a topic related to health or public safety or a safeguard of other people's rights. The use of stereotypes which outrage the religious sentiment do not contribute to creating a favorable environment for a constructive and peaceful dialogue between the various communities. On the contrary, they lead often to a climate of hatred and violence. In order to overcome this difficulty, it is necessary to improve education based on respect for all religions and beliefs, and a balancing of the right of expression and the right to religious freedom. It is useful to mention the UN World of Interfaith Harmony Week, which states mutual understanding and interreligious dialogue constitute important dimensions of a cultural peace. The diplomacy of the Holy See and the support of religious freedom. The voice of representatives of the Holy See in the multilateral context defends the interests of this unique entity. The interests are not based upon economy or military aspects, and they are not limited to one single state. They are addressed to promoting and safeguarding the rights of all the human family, and in particular, its most vulnerable groups. The right to religious freedom is a priority in the social doctrine of the Church, and every occasion and every national and international forum is used in this sense. The greatest representative of the Vatican diplomacy is the Pontiff in his public and speeches and travels. Before the General Assembly of the United Nations in New York, for instance, he spoke with strength, supporting the right to freedom of religion for individuals and community. On many occasions, the Holy Father, in particular, as the field and space of religious freedom cannot be confined to private domain. And he also recognized that putting in jeopardy this fundamental principle of freedom leads to a weakness of the strength of democratic society. All these aspects seem to be accepted generally, but if we have a look at just some decades ago, we can see that they were elements which were completely new. The concept of religious freedom is becoming more and more far away from us, and we are now witnessing a clash. And there is no need for a clash between different religions. The different conceptions cannot be reconciled. And this leads to conflict. The culture of conflict is made up of culture, and it replaces the culture of dialogue. In this prospect based on dialogue, religious freedom received in the laws is translated into consistent behaviors, and this leads to mutual respect between the various religions and their healthy collaboration with the state and the political society, with no confusion of roles and no antagonism. I would like to conclude by giving you some short thoughts. What can we see before us? Looking at the future, there are still many problems which need to be discussed in the international agenda. However, if in our action we limit ourselves only to analyzing the facts, resorting to individual situations or solutions, but forgetting that our task must combine the authority of discernment to the ability to curb the violations and interpretations of rights, so that the guarantee of rights is not limited to a generic prevention or resorting to weapons, but envisages a priori a preventive cohesion amongst those who have the responsibility to operate and to cooperate when it comes to rights, although having different opinions and views. For the pontifical diplomacy, preventive cohesion means operating to overcome the juxtaposed positions, stances, or to curb the violations underway, trying to unify, starting from listening to all the positions, all the stances. So this is another possible dialogue which the pontifical diplomacy deems essential, that on values. Words such as dignity, liberty, responsibility are already in the language and the aspirations of the human family. Indeed, if they are absent, it is not possible to talk about human rights or to consider situations which are consequent, such as peace, security, development, and cooperation. The alternative is represented by lack of movement and by remaining still vis-à-vis violations or interpretation with a shocking effect, but they are increasingly distant from the defense of human dignity. In current pluralistic society, peaceful coexistence must be based on what we share as people. The reason and respect for the internal law which nature poses in the heart of every person. In this way, dialogue becomes possible and constructive at the level of everyday life to face together our mutual needs, common needs, at cultural level through a mutual knowledge, at the level of faith, in order to discover common values. It is a long way to go, but it is the only way to go in order to attain a common objective, namely peace. Thank you very much.
Bene, vorrei ringraziare.
So thank you. We'd like to thank all of you for listening to this very interesting panel. And in particular, I would like to thank Professor Ayyad for reminding us of the value of the Declaration on Human Brotherhood, as well as for expressing the hope that this dialogue, that today's dialogue, is only but the beginning of a common pathway. And I will take on the common responsibility on this. I can certainly tell you that we are committed to bring this dialogue further. Thank you very much to Jàn Figèl, for his commitment. I think we all understood what intensity, what workload he brings he has to deal with because of this work he does for over 3 years, and we really hope that he continues doing so. You know that the European Commission has recently renewed, so we also hope that the future Commission will confirm Jàn Figèl in this role, in this very important and delicate activity. And I would like to thank you also for the kind, encouraging words for the meeting. He's a long-standing friend of the Rimini meeting, so his words about our 40th anniversary are an encouragement to work even further for at least additional 40 years. And then I would also like to thank, from the bottom of my heart, His Excellency Mr. Jurkovič. So you probably understood the authentic dimension of the diplomatic action that the Catholic Church pursues. The Catholic Church doesn't have its own interests, but is interested for man and for the heart of man. And this is exactly what brings so many people to be committed on this. We will also talk about this later on, tomorrow morning, basically, in the Percorsi room at 12. We will talk with him about the nature and the dynamics of the Vatican diplomacy. Once again, thank you very much for being here. I would like to remind you that you can help us, you can help the Rimini meeting by supporting us. You can go to the centers under the name Dona Ora with the red heart symbol. Thank you very much.